Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another hump day. And you're seeing me in the Halloween costume we have picked for this year.
Yes, Mike Wazowski.
And Voyse is going as
Sully.
We actually went to a harvest festival party situation a couple days ago, and everyone was pointing out Sully.
Yeah, it's because my outfit's so cute.
She is very cute in it. If you can imagine Sully and then her big belly, because she's very pregnant now.
I have Boo waiting in there.
Yeah. We're gonna reuse these costumes in a couple years,
and then we'll actually have Boo.
Yeah, and we'll put her in the Boo costume.
I'm so excited about that.
Joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. It's the day before Halloween, and I'm really excited about it. But let's give them pumpkin to talk about. Let's start with our new joke.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Well, let me go ahead and try and give you a scary Halloween riddle here. Imagine there's a boogeyman living under your bed and he's coming to eat you. What do you do?
I give him a proposal.
Oh, let's hear this proposal.
Let's catch Santa Claus. And you leave me alone.
I mean, that would work, but the real answer here is quit imagining things. Because it started off with imagine there's a boogeyman.
Oh, okay. An easy way to cut that off.
I don't know. I like you giving the proposal, though.
Please don't eat me.
Well, welcome to our new listeners, where we dive into the wild world of Am I the A-hole? Get ready for stories packed with drama, twists, and moral dilemmas that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. So whether you're here to judge or just enjoy the chaos, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to join our community of story enthusiasts. Now,
that was clean. What am I doing?
You're around.
Yeah, I am.
Now, let's see who's right and who's, well, maybe not.
Voyse.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I'm packing out all these writing skills, guys.
Good job.
Thank you. Oh, but before we go ahead and delve into these fantastical stories, why don't you go ahead and remind everybody that they need to make sure to stay hydrated on Wednesdays, because it's Hydration Wednesdays.
Drink your water.
I like how you're doing it as if it's a dumbbell.
Just do it.
Don't forget, for any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not including friend who always complains about wedding costs in the wedding party? I, 24 male, have an old group of friends that, including me, is 4 people. We met in grade school and were all good friends through high school. Didn't all go to the same college and don't all live in the same city now, but typically get together a few times a year. One of those guys I'll call Mike. Mike is the one I'm definitely the least close to as an adult. We were really tight growing up, but went different paths as adults, and our friendship these days is mostly due to longevity and association with the other 2 guys. Mike is not a bad guy by any means, but we have the least in common, and he is always talking/complaining about how expensive things are, especially with weddings when our other 2 friends in the group got married. Last summer, when another of the guys got married, he complained so much about having to pay for the groomsman suit that was about $250. He also complained about the bachelor party being out of town, like most batch parties I've been to, and at the wedding itself talked about how weddings are such a waste for one day. When coming up with our wedding parties, my fiancé has her sister plus 5 close friends she wanted to include, plus she really wanted to add my little sister, which I appreciated. We also both agree matching numbers look best. I know this isn't mandatory, but we like it that way. For mine, I always wanted my brother as my best man. I'm including her little bro because I like him and think it's a nice gesture, and the other 2 guys from the group, and my 3 best friends from college. I didn't feel bad about leaving Mike out because I know how he feels about spending money on a suit for one day, and he'll still be invited to the bachelor party if he wants to go as well as a couple other friends who aren't in the wedding party. so he won't be the only non-groomsman there. Apparently, once he figured out the whole wedding party, he got really upset. He hasn't said anything to me, but is acting a little passive-aggressive, and my other friends from the group said he's called me an a-hole for excluding him and acting like he's worth less than my college buddies who I haven't known as long. I think that's dumb because 1, even though we've known each other less time, we hang out way more now. 2, they know the costs and are totally cool with them. And 3, Mike complains about the cost of being in the wedding party anyway. He apparently doesn't get this and thinks I'm just being an a-hole. Do you think I am?
Good story to get us kicked off with. I think a lot of people have these type of scenarios in their life, especially when they go from having friends when they were growing up to friends they meet when they're adults through college, work, however you meet your friends when you're an adult. Because sometimes people can take for granted that just because they met you when they were younger and you happen to have the length of time as a friend does not necessarily mean the quality of friendship. So, I've known you since we were 10. Obviously, our friendship means more than someone you met 3 years ago, but have a stronger connection with and hang out with and share in hobbies or spending quality time together.
I think the biggest, hurdles when it comes to long friendships like this is the different phases of life everybody goes through isn't always the same and will never always align either.
And distance. It's hard when maybe when you were single or if you don't choose to have kids and you have friends that are starting to have kids, those are the type of phases we're talking about. You kind of, not that you grow out of friendships. It's just when you have friends that have more things in common, it's easier to spend that time with them because you're kind of more aligning in what you're looking for. That doesn't mean they don't cherish you as a friend. It just means that that's what's happening in life. We all kind of, grow in and out of phases that unfortunately leave people like ROP's friend feeling like they're not being valued. Now, I've learned this throughout my lifetime. There are just people that complain and they're just start to finish their day with that.
Sometimes it's just how they initiate conversation.
Yes. It may not be an attack on you guys for making him spend, but it could just be, you're right. That's how they talk. Now, it can be exhausting for people around those type of folks. And if you've ever been around someone who just complains from start to finish, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. So
I feel like this is an exclusive club here.
There are a lot of complainers in the world. And again, it can suck the fun out of everything. And that's what it sounds like it did to ROP. Was it right for you to have excluded him based off of just that? Because he does kind of define that he's not as close to him. He's only a friend because it's a friend of a friend. And at this point, not really so much that they're spending time together and that he cherishes that friendship.
Correct.
In my mind, just given his definition of that friendship, you don't owe someone an invitation to be your groomsman. So in my opinion, no, you wouldn't be the a-hole for that aspect of it. But if you guys have known each other that long, if you've been seeing each other and still hanging out even a little bit, you might have owed him just an explanation. Maybe not having him come to the bachelor party and sitting there going, wait a second, all of you are...
Well, he said there was 2 other people aside from...
Regardless, he's seeing a bunch of other friends that they're all friends with. That still stings a little bit.
Yeah, I'd have to agree as well.
You know that feeling if you've been with people and you see a bunch of friends and then you go, wait a second.
I'm the outlier.
Yeah, you know how that feels in a room. If you've been a part of it or if you've seen that happen in a room.
Something's odd here.
Yep, and that's what happened here. I think you owed him, if you're friends, at least giving him the reason why he's not a groomsman and not finding out at a bachelor party he got invited to. Yeah, he's a complainer and that sucks. And that's probably something you should have told him is, hey, based off of how you conduct yourself around us at every event I've ever been to, I didn't want to put you through that and I didn't want to have you suck the energy out of me. A true bro would understand that statement. It still would sting, but I think you owed him at least that. But I don't think you're the a-hole. I just wish you'd had communication on that and not had thought that just inviting him to the bachelor party was going to be good enough.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For most Redditors, it's not an a-hole move for OP to have decided who's in the wedding party. However, there are some just like you who called out OP for not talking to their friend regarding their problems, especially if it can potentially exclude them from their small friend group. Now, the way that I see it is everybody gets to choose their own wedding. And I also agree that if you're actually close friends with someone, you would talk to them about problems that you might have. Whether it's just like, hey, dude, you're complaining just a bit too much, and it makes it unsavory to just be around. Or something as simple as, look, I see that you're always talking about this, and, you know, is there anything else you want to talk about instead?
You hangry, bro?
Regardless, I can understand it that as a friend, if there is a problem, you should call that problem out. Not be rude about it, but at least bring it up, especially if it is going to potentially exclude one from being able to be a part of what everybody else is a part of. But I can't fault anybody for having invited who they wanted in the party. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about going against the wife's wishes.
All the time, every day.
Wow. You know I like the challenge. Would I be the a-hole if I withdrew my daughter from sports against my wife's wishes? My daughter, 15 female, is a competitive gymnast. Her team travels all over the country to compete. She is a sophomore in high school and wants to stop competing because her body hurts. She is at the gym 14 hours a week. She lacks the drive and passion for the sport, and she wants to do more high school things and concentrate on her studies. She is an honor roll student and takes AP classes in sophomore year. My wife, 43 female, is against it because my daughter's season just started and she made a commitment to the team and she should see it through. We also spent $1,800 this summer on camps and sessions to help her get better. She thinks my daughter will become lazy and want to hang out with friends, and her chores and schoolwork will suffer. I, 43 male, understand my wife's point about the commitment to the team and the money. I also understand my daughter's point about being sore, as I used to be a weightlifter and wanting to be more active in high school. I am trying to find middle ground, but I don't think it exists. My gut is to protect my daughter and withdraw her, but I know it will put me in the doghouse big time. I feel stuck between a rock and a hard place. Would I be the a-hole?
So, ROP is the dad. He's seeing his daughter right now. She's what, 14, 15?
15.
Okay. And she's in competitive gymnastics. So they're signing her up. They just said it. Just got done with an $1,800 camp. So this isn't just a hobby. This is something that they're trying to potentially maybe get her into college with. In my point of view, this is something we're chasing seriously.
It sounds like it.
Unfortunately, it sounds like their daughter is already in a lot of, she said she's sore. So we're talking about physical ailments that are coming from the sport.
Correct.
You got to be careful with those things, especially when you're talking about gymnastics. If you've ever been around any of those, I grew up playing sports. I had a lot of friends that were gymnasts. If your heart's not in that sport, you can do some real damage to yourself. So we'll start with that right there. If your daughter is already thinking about quitting, she's already quit. That's how it has to be in that type of sport. I would feel very uneasy about putting our daughter back on any mat with that in her heart. That right there, just understanding the sport, that's not probably a good thing in my mind to keep pushing. But the reasons outside of that are she wants to do more high school curriculum stuff. I'm not really certain. She wants to focus on her grades a little more, but it sounds like she's already in advanced classes.
I just have to wonder how bad the burnout is for her, because if she's spending 14 hours every week, you're going to classes, you have to stick in your study time for these accelerated courses, and then you're adding the 14 hours. Like, there's no time for you as a person.
And now some kids can thrive under that, and some kids need that type of structure in their life. Not everyone's built the same. And it sounds like you are correct. We're seeing burnout. But the mom is looking at it like if they give just a little bit, just that inch, the daughter's going to completely fall apart, right? She's not going to do, her studies are going to lack.
She's going to become lazy.
Yeah.
She's going to want to hang out with friends. Oh no, hang out with friends.
No. God forbid that.
Her chores will suffer.
Yeah. So that's an interesting mindset to be in. Having that much control and to look at the situation going, if one thing changes, your entire life is going to be destroyed.
Just a derailment.
Is our mother living her dream through her daughter? Because that unfortunately plays a large aspect in some of these parents.
I also have to wonder that as well, because that's actually one of the notes that I put for myself. I question the true motives of OP's wife.
You can see it a lot when kids are coming up through like Pee-wee and high school and college, when their parents show up to the practices or the games. You can see
more invested.
You can see who's more invested and living through their kids.
But yes, I have to also ask, do they feel like they're living missed decisions of their youth through their daughter?
Those are things that we have to be aware of as parents. And sometimes our dreams can almost supersede our kids if you're not careful.
Not just supersede, but smother them.
Yeah. In this case, you're seeing it. Again, if you can't see that your kid's telling you that they're in pain and they're no longer in the sport, no matter how much money you poured into it, that should never have been your end goal, was never to propel them through something you wanted for them. They've got to want it too. And yes, sometimes kids can get into because I've been around enough of them. I've had a lot of friends tell me that by the time they got to college, they had wished that their parents hadn't let them quit X, Y, and Z. Whether it be instruments, sports, certain groups that were in school, they wish that they had someone sit there on the side of, don't do that. Let's persevere. Let's learn what perseverance looks like. That's not this situation. She's telling you she's in pain. Regardless of the other things that happen as she quits the sport, that's the thing that comes to my mind first. We're not in it mentally anymore, and we're physically in pain. Because at 14, you definitely need to be aware of that. Who knows if you're dealing with arthritis building up. I don't know what her sorenesses are, but with gymnasts, when you see it that early on, that's a problem. In my opinion, OP, this is a conversation that you 100% need to have with your wife. She needs to get on the same level of your daughter's well-being comes first, not her chasing a dream for her daughter. You just got to let that one go. And I understand all the money that got poured into it and time, because that's the other aspect of this. When we get our kids into sports and extracurriculars, it's not just them that has to sacrifice. I get that. For her mom, who knows how many practices she's gone to? Who knows how many times she's had to wake up early or drive across state lines to make sure her daughter got to a meet.
But for me, the well-being of my child is first and
Sure,
foremost.
but that's where sometimes as parents, we can get locked up into that. Well, I've invested a bunch too, so I also have a say in your future, whether or not you quit her. That can be a problem. Get to the point where you talk to your wife about how your daughter's decision comes first and how she feels, and the not just physical, but the mental toll it's taking on her. If she needs that break, please do not burn her out. That can have a large reaching effect on everything in her life, because that same thing of, if I give it an inch, she'll completely become a lazy human being. No. She'll still become that when you burn her out through this. So be careful, because the knife cuts both ways on that type of thinking. You would not be the a-hole if you made sure to respect what your daughter wants.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, passion and drive is terribly important when pursuing sports, especially when you're doing it competitively. But the fact that OP's daughter is in physical pain is the main reason why OP should trust their gut and protect their daughter first. And that was sort of kind of down the line with almost every Redditor that I kept reading through there. As I said, for me, the moment that I read this, it just feels too much like our OP's wife is projecting. They want something that they missed. And while it's great that you can have those moments where you can see someone that you love excel at something that you wish you could have, and it's sort of as if you're living, I guess, kind of like living in their accomplishments in a way, you should never force it. It should be something that you find joy in, but the well-being of that person should always come first and foremost. And I've seen it so many times where parents will not put the well-being of their child first, because that child is an object, and that object needs to be treated just as that. And I think that type of mentality is a really wrong one to have. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about hiding a deep secret. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's fiancé that she is infertile? I will try to keep this as simple as possible. My 26 male sister, Emma, 29 female, was very sick in high school. Her choice was either to die young or be able to conceive children. It was a hard decision for her, and she doesn't like to talk about it. She has been dating Adam, 29 male, for about 6 years, and he is really nice. The whole family loves him. He proposed to her last year, and they were planning to marry in March next year. But here's the problem. Adam really wants children. He always plays around with our little cousins at family events and talks about what he wants to do and teach his future children. We always thought that they were going to be adopting, so we never brought it up. But since the engagement, I have noticed that he always talks about them as their children, as in biological. I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't seem like they were going to adopt a child. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to talk to Emma about it. I asked her out and gently brought up the topic. She did seem a bit angry about me mentioning it, but she explained to me that Adam treats adoption the same as giving birth and that he is happy all the same. It sounded believed, but I know my sister. She was lying. During the entire conversation, she could not look me in the eye. After a month, I finally decided to talk to Adam. This Sunday, we were gathered at my parents' house for dinner, and while everyone was busy and we were alone, I asked Adam how the adoption proceedings were going. Were they going to start now or after they got married? He looked surprised and asked me what I was talking about. I mentioned how he wants many kids, so they should probably be starting with the whole process early. He asked me if Emma wants to adopt a child because they had never talked about it. Since my parents were coming back, I asked him to talk to me later. Around the end of dinner, I asked him for some help with my phone and led him to the balcony, and I was honest with him. I asked him if he knew that Emma can't have children. At first, he thought I was joking, but when he saw that I was serious, he got this dead look on his face. I told him some of the details and said that it would probably be best if he talked with Emma for the full story. He was quiet for the rest of the evening. When they got home, they apparently got in a major fight. I know that he is currently staying with friends and asked for the ring back, but nothing else. Emma hates me, and our parents are mostly on her side and think that I shouldn't have said anything. I thought I was doing the right thing. This is such a huge secret to keep from your future partner, but maybe it really wasn't my place to say anything. Am I the a-hole?
What the spicy meat boo?
Did I bring it?
You brought it. That's a dastardly story, seriously, from like all angles here. So let's start with this. ROP has a sister that's been in a relationship with a gentleman for 6 years.
Correct.
They're about to get married. He already proposed to her. They've talked about having kids. There's a lot of problem in that relationship. When you can't explain to your partner that you cannot conceive a child naturally, that's an issue. That's entrapment in my mind. Because there are some people that is an important aspect to their life. Now, adoption is amazing and beautiful if you can provide that to a child. But for some people, that's not a route they want to take. You're allowed to have your expectations for your life. The fact that you went 6 years into a relationship and couldn't tell the person that you loved that aspect of you is a problem. Now, do you owe them that from like the first date? Obviously not. But the second you realize that this was becoming a relationship, that's when you owed it to him. And the reason why you didn't tell him was because obviously you knew that this was an important aspect of his life that he wanted. No differently than we talk about when men waste women's time, you wasted his. Why is that okay? And then for when OP calls his sister out, she gets upset with him. No accountability. And the most damning part of this entire thing for me, outside of the long 6-year lie, is that when he's explaining it to her, he says, I know my sister. She's a liar. She was not telling me the truth when she said, oh, he knows about he just speaks like this with adoption. The fact that you had that sixth sense tell you that your sister's just lying to you again, that speaks a lot to who your sister is. And the fact that she could hold a lie like that for 6 years, you can't trust someone like that with anything.
To allow someone to believe something and they hear it and to not sense some form of guilt or remorse, that is honestly, those are scary individuals.
And then for your parents to be like, you shouldn't have done that. Really? What did you think the outcome of this would have been when they got married? And then they're trying, right, to conceive for years when she knows that this has just been a lie. Do you think that that's built off good foundations?
Oh, not at all.
What a wicked way to start a relationship. I understand being afraid of losing someone, but if you're unwilling to tell them the real truths about your situations, you've already lost them. A good relationship cannot be founded on lies. And that's what this amounted to at the end. So OP, you're not an a-hole. It's going to be a very awkward family get together for the rest of your guys' existence because you got the parents saying you were wrong, your sister's saying you were wrong. But it's clear why she's learned how to be the way she has, because your parents couldn't hold her accountable.
That's very true.
So, yeah, OP, keep being the good person.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. And for many Redditors, they came forward saying, this whole thing was a no-win situation from the get-go. I mean, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You have the knowledge that something's being kept away from someone, and if you don't say anything about it, you're an accomplice of the lie. And if you do say something about it, then it's a betrayal. But the betrayal first happened with our OP sister, Emma, not even telling the truth to her fiance, which is Adam. I also agree that in the same way as there are plenty of women who have lost their time to individuals that have lied to them in relationships, the same can go the other way around.
Yes.
And I don't think it's right either way. Our OP sister, she should have been honest. And is it difficult to admit such a truth, especially if someone really wants to have children of their own? Well, of course. If they can't explore other avenues, then they clearly don't have the same feelings for you. And he probably had that dead look on his face because he realized the whole time this person that I had been with for 6 years saw that I was so happy and we had been talking about it and we had been planning about it, and they tricked me. They lied to me. I can imagine just that simple truth of how much you were manipulated and used. That's not love. Nope. That's never going to be love. And Adam had every right to walk away. Our OP, unfortunately, this is your family. And if another point that you made right, Damas, if the parents aren't even holding her accountable for these actions, it shows where she got these loose values from. The one thing that I can say is Emma set a bad foundation for her relationship, and that's only your fault.
I can't imagine living in a relationship that long knowing that type of secret and not living with stress constantly.
Oh,
every time you see a kid, right? That conversation probably pops up. If you've been in a relationship long enough and you both are seeking children, every time a kid pops up.
And there's that guilt, and it eats away at you unless you don't really have a conscience there.
And see, that's the other half of this is, are we dealing with someone that just didn't care?
Regardless of who you are, if you know the truth about something and it's affecting someone's life in the long term, at least give them the ability to decide what they want to do. If Adam loves Emma enough and wants to stick it out with her, then at least that would be his choice. Well, let's go on to our last story of the day. And because it's the day before Halloween, rather than doing something funny, let's do something paranormal instead.
Ooh.
So let's go to our last paranormal story and see what you think about mimicry. Something in my house perfectly mimicked my son's unique cry. Last year, met a girl, fell in love, and got engaged. She had 2 little girls who I love dearly. We all moved into a house together October last year. Nothing too out of the ordinary happened. One morning, she comes to me and tells me she's pregnant. She tells me with the girls, she got postpartum very badly and explained breastfeeding can make it worse. I said, we can do formula for the baby. The added bonus of this being I can help her with night feedings. It wouldn't be all on her. Fast forward 10 months and the baby is here. We keep him in a bassinet by the foot of our bed. When it's my fiance's turn to feed him, she prefers to bring him into our bed. I worry I may fall asleep, so during my turns, I take him downstairs and lay on a beanbag and watch TikToks while he eats. The girls' bedrooms are across the hall from our room. The baby has a very distinct cry he uses when he's actually hungry and doesn't just want his pacifier back in his mouth. My fiancé calls it his pterodactyl scream. One night, last week, it was my turn to feed him around 3 a.m. I got up, made his bottle, then took him downstairs. The dog and the cats all followed me. I usually let the dog out to use the bathroom. I changed the baby's diaper, then got comfy on the beanbag with the baby next to me. Bottle in one hand, TikTok in the other, I let him drink away. He finished and fell asleep. I wasn't quite done with the TikTok I was watching, so I sat up and put his pacifier in. About a minute later, I hear his pterodactyl cry come from upstairs. I was very confused and completely shocked. I just froze for a few seconds. I thought I must be really, really tired. Put TikTok away, then looked down at my son, and just as I was about to stand up, I hear the cry from upstairs again. There was no denying what I heard this time. I got my flashlight on my phone out and cautiously headed up the steps. Trying to come up with a rational explanation, I thought I'm just hearing things that aren't there. Then I opened our bedroom door and my wife is sitting up wide awake. I asked her if she heard that and she said yeah. I said it sounded like the baby, but what the fuck was that because I had the baby? She suggested maybe one of the girls made the noise. I handed her the baby and went to check on them both sound asleep. Both the cats, our dogs, and our baby are all downstairs with me, so none of them made it. I was really freaked out at this point. I returned to our bedroom. My fiancé was putting the baby in his bassinet and laying down to go back to sleep. I whispered, "What the fuck was that?" And she just said, "Nope, we're not going to talk about it. Pretend it never happened," and fell asleep. It's been about a week now. No other noises at night, but I don't rest too easy knowing something is there.
Ooh, you gave me the goosebumps on the tail end of that. Knowing something is there. Spooky story. I'm with them though. If something creepy happens in our home, normally you and I go, you know what? We're not
touching it. Just not.
I know we've shared this story on our Patreon a couple weeks ago, but I think 3 weeks ago now, we were talking in the office and both of us were facing each other, having a conversation about work, and then a female voice, clear as day, gasps.
Oh, no, it was like a hum. It went,
Yeah, like right next to us. And it was so loud that it interjected with what Voice was saying, and it couldn't possibly have been Voice speaking because she was speaking at the same time this thing hummed.
It was the most eerie thing. I still can't. It gives me goosebumps even now because I cannot explain it. And usually for me, whenever something happens, there's some way that I can explain it off, but not that one.
That's our scary story. Then, yeah, we were like, let's not talk about that anymore. It didn't happen.
Nope. Now it's just something we're laughing about because it didn't happen.
It did not.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say there was a Redditor that actually had a fairly funny story. And I'd like to go ahead and include that in here since it's similar to our OPs, although slightly different. The Redditor said, "Funny story, not saying this is the case for you, but maybe a possibility. When my daughter was an infant and I was experiencing new mom exhaustion, I would repeatedly hear her distinct cry, go check on her, and she would be sound asleep. This would happen at least 2 to 3 times per week, maybe more. I just summed it up to my postpartum brain was making me hallucinate. Well, eventually one day, I was sitting outside with baby and I hear her cry, clear as day, but she was sitting right with me in her jumper, happy and content as can be. I looked up and around to see there was a mockingbird in the tree. This damn bird had learned my baby's crying was the culprit for my hallucinations all along."
See, there's always an explanation.
I cannot imagine hearing something like the sounds, you can definitely, as a parent, hear the distinct cries and sounds that your baby makes. Now, this for our OP was at night, and apparently it was in the same room that OP's wife was in, because he said that he heard it come from upstairs in the bedroom where the wife was sleeping. Baby was downstairs with him. That's definitely not a bird, guys, unless that bird is literally sitting right above them and they haven't noticed that. But to actually be able to figure out that the sounds that you've been hearing, it was an animal.
Yeah.
It's that I just thought was really cute.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe the wife, though, fell asleep and her unconscious mind did the baby cry.
Oh, is
So
that how this is going to go?
There's always a reason why things happen.
Pterodactyl scream.
Yep.
No. But maybe.
Was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Good one to end off the day before Halloween with.
Thank you.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate. Don't forget to subscribe and then ring that little bell button. That way you can go ahead and get notifications of our stories coming out.
Man, we're sounding more professional.
We are. I'm actually
Well,
trying here. We post our stuff on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have our Feel Good Fridays. And on our Patreon, we have our Damas After Darks.
Which we post on Saturdays.
That's right. We would also love to thank all of our Patreons for your support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all.
Promise, I'll write you a better thank you later.
And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
I have to say, for me, the last AITA story was probably the most dastardly. There's something different when and it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, when you are looking forward to having a child, not being able to have it because you physically can't is heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. But to know that your partner is keeping such a dark secret from you, that keeps you from being able to at least have a choice in your dreams and your outlooks in the future, that for me is something different.
Very true. And yes, that's a very disheartening story. I hope that's more an outlier than it is a commonplace thing. Don't build your relationships off lies.
I agree.
But let's swing it back to being positive, because it's the day before Halloween.
It's a day before Halloween.
What are you guys doing? What are the plans? Ours is going to be a little more laid back. We always kind of have this tradition now. We go to my brother's house, and their neighborhood is just
packed with kids.
Packed. It's such a festive little place. So we bring all our stuff down there. We buy boatloads of candy. And I'm hoping this year we put a bonfire out in the driveway, so that way we can all just sit and hang out and pass out a bunch of candy.
If anything, I've been hearing more and more that trick-or-treating, like in neighborhoods, like when you and I were kids, is becoming very rare.
Oh, yeah.
And to be able to still experience that makes me really excited.
We're going to buy so much candy because last year we ran into a problem where we ran out of candy and we were being reverse trick-or-treated by the kids in the neighborhood.
I didn't know this was a thing. I felt so bad.
We had all these little kids giving us candy to give to other kids.
My sister-in-law was sitting there and she was the only one that had the kahunas to be like, I only have one more candy left, and they're putting the candy in there for future kids.
It was cute and inspiring to see a bunch of kids being nice to other kids without, you know how you pay it forward?
Yeah.
That was that situation just for kids.
It's humbling, that's for sure.
But this year, we're going to make sure we have so much candy ready.
I want the good candy, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Twizzlers, all right? And whenever I see them in my bags, when I was a kid, I would get upset because I don't like the way it sticks to your teeth. It's all about the chocolate. So I'm going to make sure these kids have chocolate.
That's a good question to ask everybody. What is your favorite chocolate to get during Halloween? I mean, obviously as adults, but maybe when you were a kid, what were you looking forward to?
Reese's Peanut Butter Cup.
Maybe, I think mine is probably a Butterfinger.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes. Nothing made me quite so happy as going to that one neighbor in my cousin's neighborhood that gave full-size candy bars.
You know, I always heard that people got lucky and had people do that on their neighborhoods, but that was not mine.
There was only one neighbor,
I had a neighbor give me a packet of carrots, little baby carrots.
Why?
I don't know, because they hated us.
Nothing makes me sadder than when I would get the raisins. I'm like, what is this?
I would have taken raisins over carrots.
Well, yes. I think anybody would have taken raisins over carrots.
I ate them. That's the sad part.
I gave mine to my dad.
Memories.
Yes.
Well, hopefully you have a very spooky and safe Halloween, and we will catch you guys on Friday. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I can't wait to hand out candy.